Ethan Carter had always been the kind of guy who blended into the background. At 32, he worked as a mechanic on spaceships, fixing engines and patching up hulls for a living. He wasn't particularly ambitious, nor did he dream of adventure or fame. His life was simple. Wake up, fix things, eat dinner, sleep, repeat. But all of that changed one fateful day when the spaceship he was traveling on, the *SS Verizon *, veered off course. The mission had started like any other. Ethan was part of the maintenance crew, tasked with ensuring the ship ran smoothly during a routine supply run to an uncharted sector of space. The crew was small, just 10 people, and most of them kept to themselves. Ethan spent most of his time tinkering with tools in the engine room, occasionally chatting with Mia Roberts, the botanist who had a sharp wit and a knack for making him laugh. Then there was Jake Miller, the pilot, who seemed more interested in complaining about his ex-wife than flying the ship. Everything seemed normal until the ship entered what the captain called a gravitational anomaly. Ethan felt it before he saw it. A strange pull, like the entire ship was being stretched in different directions. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the floor shook violently. In the chaos, Ethan rushed to the engine room, hoping to stabilize the situation. He worked furiously, sweat dripping down his face as he adjusted levers and rerouted power. Despite his best efforts, the ship spiraled out of control, hurtling toward a planet glowing faintly in the distance. The crash was brutal. Metal screeched, glass shattered, and the world spun in dizzying circles. When Ethan finally came to, he found himself sprawled on the ground outside the wreckage. His head throbbed, and his hands were scraped raw, but he was alive. Nearby, Mia groaned as she pulled herself upright, brushing dirt off her jacket. Jake stumbled out moments later, clutching his arm and muttering curses under his breath. "What just happened?" Maya asked, looking around at the alien landscape. They stood on a planet unlike anything they'd ever seen. Towering trees with bioluminescent leaves cast soft light over the terrain, while strange plants pulsed gently, as if breathing. The air smelled sweet, almost floral, and the sky shimmered with hues of purple and gold. "We're not dead," Jake said dryly. "That's something, I guess." Before they could assess the damage further, movement caught their attention. From the shadows emerged a group of humanoid creatures. Their skin was translucent, glowing faintly in the dim light, and their eyes sparkled like gemstones. They approached cautiously, their melodic hums filling the air. Ethan froze, unsure whether to run or stay put. To everyone's surprise, the aliens stopped in front of Ethan and bowed deeply. One of them stepped forward, placing a delicate hand on his shoulder. A series of harmonious tones followed, which Mia guessed might be some form of greeting. But then something strange happened. Another alien, an older female with intricate markings on her skin, touched Ethan's hand. She gasped, stepping back with wide eyes. Moments later, she began speaking rapidly to the others, her tone excited. "What did you do?" Mia whispered, staring at Ethan. "I didn't do anything," Ethan protested, holding up his hands defensively. But the aliens weren't listening. They surrounded him, chanting and bowing as though he were some kind of deity. Confusion turned to panic as Ethan realized this was no ordinary first contact. It was the beginning of something far stranger than he could have imagined. As the aliens continued to chant and bow, Ethan felt a mix of embarrassment and unease. He glanced at Mia and Jake, hoping they'd have some kind of explanation for what was happening. Maya looked just as baffled, her brow furrowed as she tried to make sense of the situation. Jake, on the other hand, crossed his arms and smirked. "Well, looks like you're their new favorite person," Jake said, clearly amused. "What's your secret, Ethan? Did you bring snacks or something?" Ethan ignored him and turned back to the aliens. One of them stepped forward, a tall figure with glowing green markings on its translucent skin. It hummed softly, then placed both hands over its chest in what seemed like a gesture of respect. The others followed suit, creating an eerie yet mesmerizing scene. Ethan wanted to run, but he couldn't move. Something about their presence made him feel rooted to the spot. Mia cleared her throat and took a step closer. "Maybe we should try communicating with them," she suggested. "They seem peaceful enough." "Peaceful? They're treating him like he's some kind of god," Jake exclaimed, gesturing wildly at Ethan. "This is insane." Ignoring Jake's sarcasm, Mia pulled out her handheld translator device, a small gadget designed to decode alien languages. She pointed it toward the group and waited. After a few moments, the device beeped, translating one of the melodic hums into broken English. "Kelthun, bringer of life." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked nervously. "It sounds like they think you're important," Maya replied hesitantly. "Like, really important." The tension grew thicker as the older female alien who had touched Ethan earlier approached again. This time, she spoke directly to him, her voice soft and melodic. The translator struggled to keep up, but fragments of words came through. Gift, blessing, hope. Then, without warning, she pressed her palm against Ethan's once more. Her expression changed instantly, lighting up with joy. She turned to the others and began speaking rapidly, her tone filled with excitement. "What did she say now?" Jake demanded, growing impatient. "She's saying..." Mia paused, double-checking the translation. "She's saying she's pregnant." Ethan's eyes widened. "Pregnant? But that's impossible. I didn't even..." He stopped himself, realizing how ridiculous he sounded. Of course he hadn't done anything. He was just standing there, completely clueless. The aliens erupted into cheers, surrounding Ethan with renewed energy. They began touching him gently, his arms, his shoulders, even his hair, as if he were some kind of miracle worker. Each time someone made contact, another announcement followed. More pregnancies, dozens of them. Ethan stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the sudden attention. "This has to be a misunderstanding," he muttered, looking to Mia for help. "Tell them I'm not, whatever they think I am." "I don't think they'll listen," Maya said, shaking her head. "They're convinced you're responsible for this. Look at them. They're ecstatic." Jake burst out laughing. "You're a fertility god, Ethan. Who knew fixing engines would lead to this?" Despite the absurdity of the situation, Ethan couldn't deny the impact he seemed to be having. The aliens treated him with reverence, offering him gifts of glowing fruits and intricate necklaces made from shimmering threads. They led him to a nearby village, where huts crafted from woven vines and luminescent leaves glowed softly under the alien sky. Everywhere they went, the Zelthari, Mia had managed to decipher their name, celebrated Ethan's arrival. By the end of the day, Ethan was exhausted. He sat on a makeshift throne-like chair while the Zelthari sang songs in his honor. Maya stayed close, trying to gather more information about their culture, while Jake wandered off, muttering about how weird everything was. As Ethan watched the glowing villagers dance around him, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had taken a turn he never could have predicted. And deep down, despite the chaos, a tiny part of him wondered if maybe, just maybe, he was meant to be here after all. The next morning, Ethan woke up to find himself still sitting on the throne-like chair. His body ached from the awkward position, and his mind was foggy with disbelief. The events of the previous day felt like a strange dream, but the glowing villagers bustling around him made it clear this was all too real. They were already preparing another ceremony, their melodic hums echoing through the village as they worked. Mia appeared beside him, holding a cup of what looked like steaming liquid. "Here," she said, handing it to him. "It's some kind of drink they offered me. Tastes like honey mixed with mint." Ethan hesitated before taking a sip. The drink was surprisingly sweet and refreshing, but it did little to calm his nerves. "I don't understand any of this," he admitted. "How am I supposed to act normal when everyone here thinks I'm, I don't know, magical?" "You're not exactly normal anymore," Maya replied with a small smile. "But hey, at least you're popular." Jake joined them a moment later, chewing on a piece of glowing fruit. "You're living every guy's fantasy, Ethan," he teased. "Touch someone, and boom. Babies. If this gets out, Earth's gonna want to worship you too. Stop joking about it." Ethan snapped, though he couldn't help but blush. "This isn't funny. What if they expect me to stay here forever? What if they never let us leave?" Mia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure it out. For now, just go along with it. The more we learn about them, the better our chances of finding a way home." As the day went on, the Zelfari continued to treat Ethan like royalty. They draped him in shimmering robes that glowed faintly in the sunlight and presented him with baskets of exotic foods. Every time someone touched him, another announcement of pregnancy followed, and the celebrations grew louder. Ethan tried to protest, explaining that he didn't have any special powers, but the Zelfari simply smiled and nodded, clearly unconvinced. By midday, Jake had grown restless. "This is getting ridiculous," he muttered, pacing back and forth. "We need to focus on fixing the ship, not playing fertility god." "I know," Ethan agreed, "but how do we even start? They won't leave me alone long enough to think straight." Mia stepped in, her tone firm. "We'll take turns. Jake, you and I can check the wreckage while Ethan stays here. We'll gather supplies and see what we're working with. Once we have a plan, we'll figure out how to explain it to the Zelfari." Ethan nodded gratefully. "Thanks, Mia. I don't know what I'd do without you." As Mia and Jake headed toward the crash site, Ethan found himself surrounded by a group of children, their translucent skin glowing softly. They giggled and reached for his hands, and he instinctively pulled away, worried about causing another unexpected pregnancy. But the kids only laughed harder, tugging at his sleeves and chattering excitedly in their melodic language. One of the elders approached, gesturing for Ethan to follow. He led him to a large tree-like structure at the center of the village. Its trunk pulsed with light, and its branches stretched high into the sky, covered in glowing leaves. The elder placed a hand on the tree, and then motioned for Ethan to do the same. "What is this?" Ethan asked, looking to one of the nearby villagers for guidance. "Sacred Grove," came the broken translation from Mia's device. "Source of life." Ethan hesitated, unsure of what would happen if he touched it. But the villagers waited patiently, their expressions filled with hope. Finally, he reached out and placed his palm against the bark. Instantly, the tree lit up brighter than before, its glow spreading outward in waves. Flowers bloomed all over the village, filling the air with a sweet fragrance. The Zelfari cheered, clapping and singing as they danced around the tree. Ethan stepped back, stunned. "What did I just do?" "You brought life," the elder said, his voice soft but clear through the translator. "You saved us." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. For the first time, he began to wonder if maybe there was more to this than a simple misunderstanding. Could he really be helping these people, or was he just caught in a cosmic joke? As night fell, the villagers gathered around a bonfire, sharing stories and songs in his honor. Ethan sat quietly, watching the flames flicker. Despite the strangeness of it all, he couldn't deny the warmth in his chest, the feeling that for once in his life, he mattered. The days that followed were a blur of ceremonies, gifts, and constant attention. Ethan tried to keep up with the Zelfari's customs, but it was overwhelming. Every morning, he was greeted by villagers eager to touch him, or simply bask in his presence. They treated him like a living legend, someone sent by the stars to save their people. At first, Ethan had resisted, insisting he was just an ordinary man. But the more time he spent with them, the harder it became to deny their belief in him. Mia and Jake, meanwhile, worked tirelessly on the crashed ship. They scavenged parts from the wreckage and explored the surrounding area for resources. Mia also spent hours observing the Zelfari, trying to understand their culture and language better. She noticed how deeply connected they were to nature. The way they cared for their plants, sang to their trees, and celebrated life in all its forms. It was clear that fertility wasn't just about having children for them. It was about growth, renewal, and hope. One evening, as Ethan sat near the sacred grove, an elder approached him. The elder carried a small vial filled with glowing liquid and handed it to Ethan with a bow. "For you," the translator device echoed. "Seed of life." Ethan stared at the vial, unsure of what to do. "What is this?" he asked. "Gift. Blessing." The elder replied, his voice melodic. "Carry it always." Ethan accepted the gift reluctantly, slipping the vial into his pocket. He didn't fully understand its meaning, but he could see how much it meant to the Zelfari. Their gratitude was genuine, and it made him feel both proud and uneasy. Was he really helping them, or was he just caught in some cosmic accident? That night, Ethan joined Nia and Jake by the fire. They had set up a small camp near the village, using materials from the ship to create shelter. Jake was tinkering with a broken panel, muttering under his breath about faulty wiring, while Mia sketched diagrams of the Zelfari's ecosystem in her notebook. "How's it going?" Ethan asked, sitting down beside them. "Slowly," Jake replied, not looking up. "This thing's a mess. It'll take weeks to fix if we're lucky. And that's assuming we can find enough parts," Mia added. "But I've been learning a lot about the Zelfari. Did you know their population decline started after those mining drones appeared in their skies? Something about radiation poisoning their land." Ethan frowned. "Radiation? So it's not natural?" "No, it's not," Maya said firmly. "Someone else did this to them. Probably another species exploiting their resources and leaving behind waste." Jake snorted. "Sounds familiar. Humans would do the same thing if given half a chance." Ethan ignored the jab and turned to Mia. "If that's true, then maybe I'm not the only reason they're getting better. Maybe whatever this is just speeding things up." "It's possible," Mia admitted, "but don't sell yourself short. You've given them hope, Ethan. That's worth something." The conversation ended as the sound of chanting grew louder. A group of Zelfari approached, carrying bowls of food and drinks. They invited Ethan to join them for a feast, and though he hesitated, he eventually agreed. As he walked with them, he glanced back at Mia and Jake, who waved him off with encouraging smiles. The feast was lively, filled with laughter, music, and dancing. Ethan found himself relaxing for the first time since the crash. The Zelfari welcomed him warmly, sharing stories and teaching him their songs. For a moment, he forgot about the ship, the repairs, and the uncertainty of his future. All that mattered was the joy in their eyes and the bond they shared. As the night wore on, Ethan realized something important. Whether or not he truly was a fertility god, he had become part of their world. And perhaps in some small way, they had become part of his too. The next morning, Ethan woke up feeling different. The weight of his accidental role as a fertility god still hung over him, but there was a new sense of purpose. He had spent the night thinking about what Mia had said, that he had given the Zelfari hope. It wasn't just about the pregnancies or the glowing trees. It was about showing them that things could get better. That thought stayed with him as he walked through the village, watching the Zelfari go about their day. Mia joined him shortly after breakfast, carrying her notebook and translator device. "I've been studying their soil and plants," she explained. "There's definitely something off. The radiation levels are high, especially near the mining equipment we found yesterday." "Radiation?" Ethan asked, frowning. "You think that's why they've been struggling?" "It makes sense," Maya replied. "Their land is poisoned, and it's affecting everything. Plants, animals, even their ability to have children. Your presence seems to counteract it somehow, but we need to find a permanent solution." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, unsure of how to respond. "So I'm not actually a god. Just lucky timing." "Maybe," Maya said with a shrug. "Or maybe you're more special than you realize. Either way, we can't rely on you alone to fix this. We need to neutralize the radiation." Jake appeared a moment later, wiping grease from his hands. "Good news and bad news," he announced. "The good news is I figured out what caused the crash. The bad news is we'll need parts we don't have to fix it." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. "There's damage to the ship's core engine," Jake explained. "We can patch it up temporarily, but if we want to fly safely, we'll need materials from another ship or help from someone with better tech." Ethan sighed. "Great. So we're stuck here until who knows when." "Not necessarily," Mia interjected. "If we can clean up the radiation problem, the Zelfari might be willing to help us. They seem resourceful, and they already trust you." Before Ethan could respond, a commotion broke out in the village square. A group of Zelfari elders gathered around the sacred grove, gesturing for Ethan to join them. Reluctantly, he followed, with Mia and Jake trailing behind. One of the elders stepped forward, holding a small crystal that glowed faintly. "Calfun," he said, his voice soft but urgent. "Help us. Grove fades." Ethan looked at the sacred tree and noticed something alarming. Its glow had dimmed, and some of its leaves were wilting. Panic spread among the villagers as they realized their source of life was in trouble. "What's happening?" Ethan asked Mia. "I think the radiation is spreading," she said grimly. "It's reaching the grove now. If we don't act fast, it could die." Ethan felt a surge of guilt. The Zelfari had put so much faith in him, and now their most sacred place was in danger. "What can we do?" Mia pulled out her notebook. "We need to build a filter, a device that can absorb the radiation and protect the grove. I've got an idea, but it'll take time and resources." Jake crossed his arms. "And where exactly are we supposed to get those resources?" "The mining equipment," Maya said firmly. "It's full of advanced tech. If we salvage it, we might be able to create something that works." Ethan nodded. "Then let's get started." Over the next few days, the trio worked alongside the Zelfari to gather materials and construct the filter. Ethan helped carry supplies, while Mia directed the design and Jake handled the technical details. The villagers pitched in enthusiastically, eager to save their grove. For the first time, Ethan felt like he was truly contributing, not as a god, but as part of a team. When the filter was finally ready, they installed it around the base of the sacred tree. Slowly, the grove began to glow again, its light spreading outward like before. The Zelfari cheered, hugging each other and thanking Ethan profusely. As Ethan stood there, watching the tree come back to life, he realized something important. He didn't need to have all the answers. Sometimes, being human and working together was enough. Just as things seemed to be settling down, a new challenge arrived. A loud rumble echoed across the sky, and everyone in the village looked up to see a massive spaceship descending through the clouds. The vessel was sleek and metallic, unlike anything the Zelfari had ever seen. It landed not far from the village, kicking up dust and sending waves of unease through the crowd. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. "Who are they?" he asked Mia, who stood beside him with a worried expression. "I don't know," she admitted, "but they're definitely human." The ship's ramp lowered, and a group of people dressed in uniforms stepped out. Leading them was Commander Laura Hayes, a tall woman with sharp features and an air of authority. She scanned the scene, her eyes narrowing when she spotted Ethan surrounded by the glowing villagers. "What's going on here?" Laura demanded, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Before Ethan could answer, Jake stepped forward. "We're survivors of the *SS Horizon*. Our ship crashed a few weeks ago." Laura raised an eyebrow. "And you've been playing God with the locals." "It's not like that," Ethan protested. "They think I'm important, but we've been helping them too. Their land is poisoned, and we're trying to fix it." Laura didn't look convinced. She turned to her crew. "Scan the area. I want a full report on their condition." "And his." She pointed at Ethan without hesitation. The Zelfari watched nervously as the newcomers moved around their village, scanning trees, soil, and even people. Some of them tried to block the intruders, but Ethan held up a hand to stop them. "Let them do their job," he said gently. "They're just trying to understand." Mia approached Laura cautiously. "We've been working with the Zelfari to clean up radiation left behind by old mining equipment. They've suffered because of it." Laura listened but showed no sign of sympathy. "Radiation. That explains why they're infertile. But what about him?" She gestured toward Ethan. "How is he involved?" "He's immune to the effects," Mia explained. "Somehow his presence counteracts the radiation. We don't know why yet." Laura's eyes narrowed further. "Immune, you say? Interesting." As the day went on, tensions grew between the two groups. The Zelfari were wary of the newcomers, especially after seeing how they treated their sacred grove like a science experiment. Ethan did his best to keep the peace, translating for both sides and explaining the situation. But it was clear that Laura had her own agenda. "You should come back with us," Laura told Ethan later, pulling him aside. "Earth needs someone like you. Scientists would kill for the chance to study your abilities." Ethan shook his head firmly. "I'm not leaving. These people need me. They need technology, not superstition." Laura shot back. "You can help millions if you come with us. What's one village compared to an entire planet?" Ethan hesitated. He knew she had a point. Going back to Earth could mean finding answers to questions he hadn't even thought to ask. But abandoning the Zelfari felt wrong. They had trusted him, accepted him, and worked alongside him to heal their home. How could he walk away now? Mia noticed his internal struggle and stepped in. "Commander, give us time. We're close to solving the radiation problem. If you take Ethan now, you'll undo everything we've accomplished." Laura frowned but nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but this isn't over." That night, Ethan sat by the fire, staring into the flames. The Zelfari gathered around him as usual, singing softly and offering words of gratitude. Despite the warmth of their company, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. Laura wasn't the kind of person to give up easily, and he knew her arrival would change everything, for better or worse. The next morning, the village was tense. The presence of Commander Laura Hayes and her crew cast a shadow over the once peaceful atmosphere. The Zelfari moved cautiously, keeping their distance from the newcomers while casting worried glances at Ethan. They trusted him, but they didn't trust the humans who had arrived in the sleek spaceship. Ethan spent most of the day trying to mediate between the two groups. Laura's team continued scanning the area, taking samples of plants, soil, and even the sacred grove. Each time they approached the glowing tree, the Zelfari grew more agitated. Ethan could see the frustration building on both sides, and he knew it wouldn't take much for things to escalate. Mia stayed close to Ethan, helping him explain the Zelfari's customs to Laura. "They're not just trees or rocks," Maya said firmly. "These are sacred places to them. You can't treat everything like it's a science project." Laura crossed her arms, unimpressed. "If we don't study it, how are we supposed to help? Sentiment won't solve their problems." "It's about respect," Ethan added. "You can't just barge in and expect them to trust you." Laura rolled her eyes but relented slightly, ordering her team to be more careful around the sacred sites. Still, the tension remained thick in the air. Jake, meanwhile, had been avoiding the newcomers altogether. He spent his time working on the crashed *SS Horizon*, determined to make progress before Laura decided to take matters into her own hands. But late that afternoon, he discovered something unsettling. Hidden beneath a pile of debris near the ship's wreckage were tools and parts that had been tampered with, some wires cut, others removed entirely. "What the hell?" Jake muttered under his breath. At first, he thought it might have been damage from the crash. But the cuts were too clean, too deliberate. Someone had sabotaged the repairs. He confronted Ethan and Mia as soon as he found them. "We've got a problem," he said, holding up one of the damaged wires. "Someone messed with the ship. My guess, one of Laura's crew." Ethan frowned. "Why would they do that?" "To keep us here," Maya answered quickly, her voice low. "If we can't fix the ship, we can't leave. And if Ethan stays, They can study him, or worse, force him to go with them. Ethan clenched his fists. I won't let that happen. That night, tensions boiled over during a meeting between the Zelfari elders, Ethan, and Laura's team. The elders demanded answers about the stranger's intentions, their melodic hums growing sharp and urgent. Laura, however, refused to back down, insisting that humanity's needs outweighed the Zelfari's traditions. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Ethan interrupted, stepping between them. These people have suffered enough because of outsiders. We can't keep taking without giving back. Laura glared at him. And what exactly do you plan to do? Stay here forever. Play fertility god until you die. Before Ethan could respond, one of the Zelfari stepped forward, placing a protective hand on his shoulder. The elders spoke in their melodic language, and Mia's translator device picked up fragments. Calathun stays. Belongs to us. Laura scoffed. Belongs to you. He's human, not some pet. The room erupted into chaos. The Zelfari began chanting loudly, surrounding Ethan protectively, while Laura's team reached for their weapons. Ethan raised his hands, shouting for everyone to calm down. Stop. This isn't helping anyone. To his surprise, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to him, waiting for what he would say next. I'm not staying because they're forcing me, Ethan said firmly. I'm staying because I want to help. But if you try to take me against my will, you'll only make enemies out of all of us. Laura hesitated, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. Fine. For now. But this isn't over. As the meeting ended, Ethan felt a mix of relief and dread. He had managed to avoid disaster, for now. But he knew Laura wouldn't give up easily. The battle for his future, and the future of the Zelfari, was far from over. The days that followed were tense but productive. Ethan, Mia, and Jake worked closely with the Zelfari to strengthen their defenses against Laura's crew. They knew it was only a matter of time before the commander made another move, so they had to be ready. The Zelfari, though peaceful by nature, proved surprisingly resourceful. Under Ethan's guidance, they set up barriers around the sacred grove and hid valuable tools and supplies deep within the forest. Mia spent hours decoding the Zelfari language, determined to bridge the gap between them and the humans. She discovered that the Zelfari had a deep respect for balance, between life and death, growth and decay. Their entire culture revolved around harmony, which made Laura's aggressive approach even more jarring. Armed with this knowledge, Mia tried to explain the Zelfari's perspective to Laura, hoping to ease the growing hostility. Listen, Maya said one evening as she sat across from Laura in their makeshift camp, you're not going to win them over by forcing your way. These people value trust above everything else. Laura leaned back, her arms crossed. Trust doesn't feed starving planets or cure diseases. If Ethan's abilities can save lives, then we have a responsibility to act. It's not about control, Maya replied firmly. It's about cooperation. You can't just take what you want and expect everyone to be okay with it. Laura didn't respond, but her silence spoke volumes. Ethan could tell she was weighing her options, calculating risks and rewards. For now, she seemed willing to bide her time, but he knew she wouldn't wait forever. Meanwhile, Jake focused on repairing the *SS Verizon *. With the sabotage uncovered, he worked twice as hard to undo the damage. He enlisted the help of a few Zelfari who showed an interest in mechanics, teaching them how to use basic tools and understand simple machinery. To his surprise, they picked it up quickly, their glowing hands steady and precise. They're naturals, Jake admitted to Ethan during a break. If we stick around long enough, they might even outsmart us. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. As the repairs progressed, Ethan proposed a compromise to both sides. He called for another meeting, this time inviting Laura, her team, and the Zelfari elders to sit together. The air was thick with unease, but Ethan stood tall, determined to find common ground. I know we all want different things, he began, addressing both groups. But maybe there's a way we can work together. The Zelfari need our help to clean up the radiation poisoning their land. And Earth could benefit from learning about their way of life, their connection to nature, their wisdom. Laura raised an eyebrow. And where do you fit into this plan? I'll stay here temporarily, Ethan said firmly. I'll help the Zelfari stabilize their population and environment. In exchange, you share your advanced technology with them. Teach them how to protect themselves and their planet. When the work is done, I'll decide my next step. The Zelfari murmured among themselves, clearly pleased with Ethan's proposal. Laura hesitated, her sharp eyes narrowing as she considered the offer. Finally, she nodded. Fine, but if anything goes wrong, I'm pulling the plug. With the agreement in place, tensions began to ease. Laura's team started working alongside the Zelfari, using their equipment to neutralize the radiation. The villagers watched cautiously at first, but as they saw the positive effects, plants growing healthier, animals returning, they grew more trusting. For Ethan, the compromise felt like a victory. It wasn't perfect, but it gave him time to figure out what he truly wanted. As he walked through the glowing village one evening, surrounded by laughter and song, he realized something important. He didn't need to choose between Earth and the Zelfari. For now, he could belong to both. And maybe, just maybe, he could help build a bridge between worlds.